Here for part two of our interview with Victor Holloway. Victor, thank you for still being with us on the show.
No, thank you.
Yeah. So, Victor, when we were talking last, we were talking about the connection between loan approvals and financing decisions and character. And it had me thinking about, of course, there are people who have questionable characters. We'll put that aside for a second because I think in this industry, in dental and in healthcare, we have a lot of the most passionate, loving, and caring individuals that I've ever met. And one of the things that I think you were starting to say and that I have seen is that when we're in a high stress situation, when there are a lot of unknowns and there's a lot of overwhelm involved, um, sometimes those are the most important times for us to be really intentional about the message we're sending to others, like the lenders, right? Um, because we don't want to act in response to our stress because then we look like chickens with heads cut off, right? And we're going to send the wrong message, and people are going to perceive that we don't have things organized and that we're not going to be able to produce those predictable results that secure the decision they're trying to make with us. And so, help me know. You said we need to make sure that we have a good story in place. Tell me what your thoughts are on, maybe I come to you and I am kind of scattered. I'm like, well, I think I've got things the way they need to be. I just don't know how to handle this. Where do you guys come in?
Again, that's probably going to require multiple conversations instead of one discovery call, maybe two or three, because every deal that we submit, we do a credit write up. And really, the purpose of that, they and the bankers call it hair. It's to point out any hair that's on
Mhm.
the deal. And what we always try to do, in an underwriter call recently and used this statement, he said, "What I love about what you guys do is you humanize all of your applicants because every bank has a credit box. And so often deals don't fit within that box unless you can properly articulate to that underwriter why it should fit in the box. And so often it's the journey of humanizing the applicant that, hey, they fell down, they scraped their knees as a young doc, they overbuilt their office, they only needed four operatories, and someone convinced them to build out seven, got themselves overextended. So that's why their income to debt ratio is a little out of whack. But hey, they're a great producer. Doing this loan will afford them the ability to hire an associate and just answering. You have to master the art when you're in our situation of pointing out any negative attributes of that person before the underwriter discovers it. Because again, it goes back to, are you trying to hide something? Why wouldn't you bring it up? So when you're more forthcoming about it, you can control the narrative around anything that could be perceived as a negative. One thing that's become bigger, I would say, in the lending space over the past 48 months is banks wanting spouses to co-sign even if the spouse doesn't work, which always baffles me that banks will ask for a spouse that doesn't work or that makes less money than the primary income earner to now guarantee loans, which means they're also vetting that person's credit. So now that becomes another coaching point for us, or discovery point for us on our calls. Hey, let's talk about your spouse's credit. And obviously, that makes a lot of people pause. Why are we talking about my spouse? They're not a dentist, physician, or veterinarian. So then you have to walk them through, just in case the bank comes back and says that's the only way this deal gets done. You might want to have a conversation with your spouse now that they might have to guarantee this loan, or do you have a parent or a sibling that's willing to guarantee the loan?
Hmm. And so if we are working together and, that to me just sounds right there a reason enough to get somebody like you involved because I don't actually want to figure out how to articulate my story. In fact, I bet for some people, they're like, I do have good reasons for the things that I'm asking for. And I think a reasonable response to everything you might ask. but I don't want to answer wrong. And so since that's
Correct.
your area of expertise,
You don't want to
that's
answer
when,
wrong or overshare because, again, we will never coach anyone to lie. You should not do that. But there is a certain thing that you can overshare. So you need to tell the truth, but you have to know that fine line of just not giving unnecessary
yeah,
details that you're like, okay, you crossed the line and this person has gotten very uncomfortable with doing this alone because you overshared.
right. And not that you would share anything wrong, but it's like the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. You're going to scare people with all the unknowns if you start talking too much. That's where I would want you on my team, because I wouldn't know where that line is, and so I appreciate that you do.
Yeah, and
um,
you get, unfortunately, Chelsea, you get some horror stories, and you really want to help people rebuild their lives, people that have gone through bad divorces and it led to substance abuse issues and things of that nature. And I'm a person, I still want to be truthful, but I also want to give people their dignity because there's certain things in all of our lives that, man, I was at a low point then. And God forbid if there was a camera on me or someone else and they had to share that before the world. So we're not coaching people to lie or to mislead. But I still also, when people have very sensitive and private things that have gone on in their lives that's no longer relevant, I still want that person to have their dignity.
hmm Yeah, I really appreciate that. Um, when somebody, a doctor, a physician, a veterinarian, is looking for, their team of experts, what would your advice be on how to choose the right experts? Because maybe somebody listening to this is going, okay, I've, unveiled a few areas where I don't know what I don't know. What are some qualifiers you look for, Victor, when you're bringing someone into your advisory team?
Again, that's so difficult. And you and I are probably in the same boat when it comes to that. Everybody's a dental expert or expert at working with healthcare professionals. So I just believe people have to do their due diligence. Social media has been a gift in that regard because I just do a lot of research on social media to see if I can find any negative or positive comments. I'm not a big person, people might disagree with this, that asks for references because no one's ever going to give you a reference that's going to say something bad about them. So I just do my own, I just do my own due diligence. Um, and I've kind of trained myself through helping my wife when we put a team of people in place for her, as far as healthcare specific attorneys, the CPAs, the practice consultants, just kind of training yourself on what questions to ask. But again, a lot of relationships are made or broken predicated on personality. I always challenge people, just find people that you enjoy working with and just follow your inner gut and work with people that are not pitching you on anything or giving you some long infomercial about how great they are. That's one thing I enjoy about your social media posts. They're not about how great you are. I feel like I always kind of get a glimpse into your life. You kind of remind me of what's that country music singer and he always wore black? That's kind of like your trademark. Like I saw you the other day in a blue dress and I was like, she's not wearing black. Like I've never seen you in anything other than a black dress, but I always feel like I kind of get a glimpse into your life and who you are instead of trying to sell people on that you're the best at this or that. I like to have those connections with people. So I don't think there's like one way of determining like this is who you should work with. For me, I go by the feel. Like, oh, okay, I could go and have dinner with this person outside a business. Do they listen to you or are they trying to force their own agenda on you? I like to work with people that listen to me when I'm the customer And I see that they're actively trying to address the things that I'm concerned about, opposed to, again, forcing their agenda on me or my wife.
Hmm. Well, first of all, thank you for your compliments. I really appreciate that. And I appreciate your activity in our media posts. I like what you're saying here a lot because while we may be apprehensive or time constrained to make those connections and kind of have an informational interview of sorts with people, I do think it's really important because one of the biggest mistakes I see people make, and I've actually made this mistake as well, I've coached on this mistake for years and I've made it twice in the past 2 years. But one of the biggest mistakes I see people make is something works really well for you. We're in the same industry. You've got, you're one step ahead. So I'm just going to use who you're using because that's who you say works.
Mm,
Instead of, not that that's not a good starting point, referrals, help everybody, but you've still got to do that due diligence and have that conversation because who's a good fit for you, Victor, and your wife may not be a good fit for me and my husband in our business, right?
correct.
Um,
Correct.
and so just enlisting that support or signing up with that agency because your friend did isn't always going to be the right step. And the reason is simple. You guys are running a different business than I am. It doesn't matter if we're in the same industry. It doesn't matter if we have practices, a mile away from each other. We're running different businesses and you and I are different people. And so our ultimate end game is different and we need to make sure we have the right supports in place.
And I find, with dental specific or healthcare specific CPAs, I find that, and this is kind of naive for people to take this approach, but my CPA will say, oh, someone referred, Chelsea referred Victor to me. And Chelsea always brags about, I don't know how he does it, but we don't pay any taxes. But then Victor and Carmen, we get a tax bill and we call the CPA and say, Chelsea said she's been working with you for 10 years and they've never paid taxes. Why am I paying taxes? And the CPA is like, you realize everybody's tax situation is different. I feel like what you said is very similar to that. We
Yeah.
just take a blanket statement predicated on someone's personalized situation and we try to apply it to us. Where
Hmm.
again, I look at it like, again, can I connect with you on a personal level? Are you a good listener? And you're right, referrals are key. That's like a starting point for me, but I'm going to still do my due diligence. A lot of my pet peeves kind of eliminate people. How responsive are you? I do not like people that are not responsive. So I like to give people grace and not contact you after business hours. But again, if I've emailed you and I haven't heard back from you in a week,
Hmm.
particularly if we've never really worked together before and you don't have any equity built up with me, I'm probably going to move on because you're
Hmm.
showing me that once I engage, that's pretty much how the relationship is going to be, that you're just not a very responsive person. And that bugs me. I just don't like that at all for people not to be responsive.
Yes, yes. And so that is important knowing what do you need out of this relationship. And I think that's an important point to make because, if our listeners are thinking, hey, I may want to work with Victor, knowing what is important to them, what are they hoping for at a consulting relationship with you? And they can hear from you what's important for you. You need someone who's going to be responsive. And that makes a lot of sense. These are big decisions we're making with our finances. And so we need to make sure that um, we're communicative. And a lot of them are, you know, time sensitive. So,
Right. And what one thing I want to express of our business model is a 100% success fee business model. There is no money that there's a contract that's signed, but there's no money that exchanges hands if we don't deliver on the loan. So there isn't a document fee or a prep fee that we charge. None of that. If we don't deliver, and trust me, there's a lot of risk on our part because again, if we're taking on clients and we can't deliver for them, we're going to be out of business very quickly. So there's no types of bait and switches where they pay literally for anything. They pay once the loan is funded, no questions asked. um so I don't want to deviate from that model and start taking retainer fees, and it just gets
Mm,
very sticky at that point. So when a client feels like they want to walk away, I don't owe you anything. You don't owe me anything. I haven't accepted any money from you. So if you scour social media, you don't see any negative things about my company out there. Oh, they took my money and they didn't deliver on my
yeah.
loan. No one can say that, because if they ever paid us, we delivered on the loan. So
Hmm.
I kind of would prefer to keep all the risk on me and my business partner initially, and we trust that our team can deliver on that loan.
Hmm. Thank you. That makes a lot of sense. And then one other question that came to mind is, once I'm working with you, am I going to have a dedicated person or team of people that I just know, or am I going to each time need to rehash? Not that there's a wrong answer, but people want to know, are you going to know my situation and my story and where we're at, or am I going to deal with a different
That's
person every time I call?
excellent. No, same person.
Okay.
We don't run a call center, nothing like that. They would be dealing with the same person. Now,
Okay.
obviously, people have vacations and things of that nature, and we have internal protocols through our CRM system. We keep very thorough notes. So if someone had to jump in for a week or two, yeah, but no, we don't bounce between various people and things of that nature. They would work with the same consultant over and over.
Okay. I know that will be offer some peace of mind for folks. What else you got for me before we wrap this up? This has been great.
No, this has been great. I love telling this story about what we do. Just as your business model, it's kind of hard to properly articulate everything you do within 30 minutes. And that's what I love about what we do. Every deal is something different. It isn't the same. These aren't robots that we're dealing with. So again, people come with a wide array of needs and dreams, hopes, aspirations, and again, they're loving that concierge approach that we're providing to obtaining practice financing. Just like in any other business, is relationship driven. And what I mean by that is, because we send such high volume of deals to these banks, I don't want to kind of contradict myself, but typically we can get access to interest rates that they couldn't get on their own. Because if you're sending a few $100 million of loans to a bank a year, they're like, hey, I can do you a solid on this one and go a little bit
Hmm.
lower, or something that should have been declined, they're like, oh man, you gave me 15 deals this month. I can get this one done for you because of the relationship. So, again, there's
Hmm.
just things we can do behind the scenes. When people are doing SBA loans, they don't understand the fees that they can request to be waived and how to legally go about making that request and how to even justify it. So in SBA deals, I think on my wife's deal, and this is before I had the company, I think I got like $80,000 of fees shaved off of her loan because I knew the proper questions to
Right.
ask. And I also knew the thresholds that the bank wouldn't go below. I'm like, you can
Hmm.
go to this point, and if you want the deal, this is what it's going to take. And again, we're just trying to coach and guide people on, just be careful the documents you're putting your signature on. Yes, it's exciting that someone's approved this loan and you can buy this practice, buy your partner out, whatever you're doing with it. But man, this is hard earned money. And if you can save yourself some time, energy, and money, why not?
Hmm.
Again, the bank isn't doing anything wrong, because it's incumbent upon the consumer to be knowledgeable about what you're putting your signature on. So, again, the banks are in it to make money, but trust me, they're not going to offer anyone a loan that they're not making money on. So if you could use an advocate, a concierge, or whatever you want to call us, to work on your behalf and still get the loan, but put you in an even better financial situation, why not?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I will attach your social media handles, contact information that you provided to the show notes so anybody listening can access it that way. But just real quick, if someone wanted to reach out right now or after this call, where would you want them to go?
They could reach, my cell phone number, which is 240-752-5068, or my email address is victor@ldrgc.com. Now, one thing I have to put out there, I don't work with any of the clients or customers directly. We have specialists within the company predicated on what type of loan that individual needs that works with the end user, which is the dentist, physician, and veterinarian, and works directly with the bank. So I want to make that clear as I'm putting my information out. Feel free to reach out to me, but I'll connect you with the appropriate person
Perfect.
internally to run point on your loan request.
Perfect. Well, Victor, thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure getting to know you and just having you on the show today. And I appreciate you being flexible with my little tech issue there for a second. So thank you very much for your time today.
No, thank you, Chelsea.